你可能知道，生活的周遭充斥着中国制产品，但你可能不知道，中国廉价产品的背后却让其他国家的人丢了工作。毒奶事件后，更让消费者避之唯恐不及。畅销新书《低价中国》作者哈妮来台分享他挖掘低价中国5大真相，告诉我们影响你我消费背后的真相。中国低价产品对你我的影响。
Western consumers in particular, but even consumers in Asia, lost sight of the people who make the goods that they buy every day. The factory that made your underwear, if you're American, used to be down the road. The factory that made your television. And now that factory is thousands of miles away, and you'll never know those people who work there. And so we lost that connection, and in a sense we lost the appreciation for the efforts those people made. And that sounds cheesy and superficial, but actually it's extremely important in terms of climate change, pollution, in terms of product safety, because companies moved their manufacturing elsewhere and they stopped checking. They moved it and they decided, well, it's cheap. I'm not going to check whether it's got all the ingredients it says it has. I'm not going to check very thoroughly whether it has child workers or not.
中国低价能持续吗？会不会被取代？
I don't think that the China price is sustainable. I think that the price itself, the price of Chinese-made goods, started to rise in 2004, but it really started to increase in early 2008. Investors started to look elsewhere. They started to look to Vietnam, to India, to Pakistan, and they started to look more inland into China. And most of the investors I know who in Vietnam are very frustrated because you can't find that same supply chain cluster. You can't find the efficiency of the ports. You can't find the local officials who are on your side, and you can't find that pliant labor force. Those workers who say, okay, no problem. As you know, Vietnam has a very strong militant labor force, and they know their rights.
金融危机减少消费，对低价中国是威胁或机会。
In the short term, it's not great because it means a lot of workers have no job. And that's a social stability, and that's ultimately a political question for China. In the long term, I think it's a healthy development, and it was long overdue. There were too many factories. There were too many factories, and that was one of the points in the China price. Inside the China price is, 1,000 factories making the same product to compete it down so there is no profit to be made making that product. Now, perhaps there are only 5 factories making that product. Surely this is healthier for those factories, a more healthy competition.
要如何知道买的商品合法？
What I advise people to do in my book, and whenever anyone asks, is if you find a product that seems too cheap to be true, follow up. Because people initially, when I first started talking about this, people would say, well, that's ridiculous. Who's ever going to call the manufacturer? But then product safety problems started to emerge. And people thought, oh no, I'll call the manufacturer. If it's the safety of me or my child, I'll definitely call the manufacturer. And so I think it's become more widely acknowledged that we as consumers have power to make a difference in the way that the products are made. To me, the biggest issue is to talk about it more and to put pressure on companies. The best example of how that works is Nike, Adidas, The Gap. These are all companies that we, having grown up when we did, associate with bad labor practices. But they actually have the best labor practices of anyone, labor and environmental policies and programs of anyone, because we put pressure on them.
如何培养消费者意识？
I think in general, consumers would be well served to educate themselves more about the supply chain, whether it's because they care about labor or whether it's because they care about their own jobs. First of all, you look on the website of the company that you're buying your goods from. You can look on the retailer's website, or you can look on the brand's website, and a lot of people have some information. Some companies have a lot of information. Consumers can exercise real power if they start calling up companies, if they start using the website.